Hello, in this video I shall be discussing the analysis of a topic. The topic is One Nation, One Election. That is to hold simultaneous elections in the center and in the state. We shall see about this proposal. Recently a committee is also constituted with its head or the chairman of as a former president Mr. Ramnath Kovind. So at the first place, why this proposal of One Nation, One Election? They say that the points that they are citing are these. The costs involved in conducting elections are very high. If there are different kinds of different phased terms of elections, phased times of elections in states and in the center. And there is also a lot of cost involved in electioneering, that is election campaigning and putting up the EVMs and conducting it with the staff personnel who work for the election. So all of this incurs, it gives a lot of cost to the exchequer. So there is also a permanent campaign mode in the election, in the political parties and political leaders. So they are always in a campaign mode. Whenever a state election is happening, all the central politicians come to that state. And when there is a central local body election happening, all the state and central politicians go to that particular local body. So there is a permanent campaign mode when there are elections happening at various levels and various times in the state. The next thing is with simultaneous election, one election per every 5 years, there can be more focus on the government by the political leaders. So they can focus on their duties, they can focus on the governance. The representatives can focus on the governance instead of moving around with the campaigns all the time. And there is huge criticism to this One Nation, One Election proposal. We shall see this, and this criticism also has solutions to these proposals. The first point is there is only minuscule difference in the costs when it is simultaneous election or election at various times, at various levels. The difference is very little. So this is what the cost surveys show. Coming to this political parties, politicians moving around in campaigns, these central political parties can give that responsibility to the state party units. For example, if in a state an election is going to happen, all the central political leaders of that party need not come to the state and for the campaigning. They can look after the governance and give this campaigning work to the state party units, state party leaders, presidents, all the persons of the state party. So they can divide the state politics and central politics. A single party can divide its state wing and central wing, and they can campaign in that way without causing any problem to the governance. So these are some criticism, or these are some points, critical points about these proposal points. And one major criticism is this: Indian elections in India are more inclined like the presidential elections in the US. We are growingly moving towards presidential character of elections in India, wherein the president and all one campaigning must happen. But in India, we are parliament, we have federal structure, and we need not mix up both the center and the state. So presidential character of elections in India is a major dent to our parliamentary system, and our elections are also more centralized these days. So this is also one major criticism, and One Nation, One Election will increase this centralized character or unitary tendency of our country, but we are a federation. Some of the objections to simultaneous elections are: we have a huge vote bank. We have 1.4 billion voters, and holding one day election to all these voters is a very big thing. It is a Herculean job. So the state elections must happen in phases. So we have state elections at local bodies, and for the legislative assembly and legislative council, we have legislative assemblies. So we have legislature and local bodies. So that must happen in phases. So this is also one thing. And we also have legislative councils in some states. So these must happen in a phased manner, and one time simultaneous election is a problem to conduction of elections. And the next point is we are a parliamentary democracy. So we cannot have a rigid election timetable. We must have flexible election timetable. To substantiate this point, we'll see two cases. In one case, the central government can be brought down. In the other case, the state government can be brought down. When these governments are stepping down, new elections must happen. So that has to be a flexible election timetable. We'll see the cases. For example, if in the parliament, if no confidence motion is passed in the house, the central government must step down. So when that happens, there has to be a new election. So there can't be a rigid election timetable in this case. In case 2, Article 365 of the Constitution. We'll see about this. Article 365 says that if the state government fails to comply with constitutional provisions, the union government can take down the state government. It can take the power of that state, the central government. So in that case, state government has to step down. So union can suspend the state government. So when state government steps down, there has to be new assembly elections coming. So there cannot be a rigid election timetable, and there cannot be one election for the whole country at one time with these cases. So proposed solutions to these cases are also there. We shall critically see them. They say that the president's rule can happen till the next government comes. When the central government is stepping down, there can be president's rule. When the state government is stepping down, there can be the president's rule in that particular state. But this undermines the federalism and democracy. So India is a federation of states, and we cannot wait until the next elections without choosing our representatives, which is the main core character of democracy. And there is also a solution that the assembly term can be adjusted. For example, if state government gets down, there can be immediate assembly election happening, and that time can be adjusted before the next elections. For example, if the new party is formed, new government is formed in on the 4th year after the election, because the state government is ousted out, it can work for 1 year, wait for the next 5th year for the simultaneous elections to be held. So the term in this case of assembly is 1 year. So this is a very wrong thing, because it is a dent to state governance. In that 1 year or 2 years, the state government policies cannot be executed well. All the planning it does cannot stand just for 1 year. It has to be a work of 5 years until the next year. So adjusting the term of assembly is not a good solution also. So next, there is also a threat to one nation, one election. There can be huge defections happening or horse tradings happening. We can know about this with reading the schedule 10 of our constitution, what is a defection and what is horse trading and all. And this also undermines two principles, federalism and democracy. India stands on these two principles. We introduced federalism because for the reason of administrative convenience. So when we divide this administration between center and states, there can be administrative convenience, but with one simultaneous election, this will not happen. And concentration of power increasingly gets to the union government, because it decides the election, one election to the whole country. So the concentration of power, if it's more on one side, it's called a unitary form of government, but ours is a federal state. And this also undermines the collective aspirations. For example, every state has its collective aspirations. We speak one language in one state. We have one culture. We have one ethnicity. Based on this, we are given statehoods at the first place. So giving one simultaneous election to the whole country undermines this authority of statehoods we have. And there is also a dent to the plurality of political parties. We are a multi-party system. In India, we have multi-parties. In our multi-party system, there has to be plurality of political outfits, which this is also a point of democracy, where people can choose from so many parties. So when this is happening with plurality of political outfits, if there is one simultaneous elections, there is a huge confusion with the voters and also the political leaders. So this has to be kept away. This point has to be kept away. The next thing is democracy. So we have state level issues. People must choose their representatives based on the state level issues. When the central government campaign happens, when central party campaign happens in that state, they get confused. So there is domination of national issues over the state level issues if there is one election. We think about terrorism more than the river water sanctions when it has to come between the 2 points. So dominance of national issues will be more in voters' mind when it is about simultaneous elections. So the voters must think about their own state first, state level issues. They must get out of them. So there is a confusion in voters if there is one simultaneous elections, and the elections only form for public participation. It is the only form, it is the only time where public participate in our country into the governance, that is elections, in Indian elections. And frequent elections will make people public participate more time, more number of times. So more extended public participation, more extended debate on governance can happen when there are frequent elections and not one simultaneous election. Basically, federalism is meant to be a bulwark against concentration of power, which we can see in simultaneous election. But this federalism is meant to be a bulwark, and when simultaneous elections are happening, federalism is undermined. And democracy recognizes the legitimacy of statehood in our country, and this will also be hampered if there is simultaneous election happening. The final say is need to protect and preserve the federal and democratic design of the constitution. No matter what, we need to protect federal and democratic design of our constitution. So this is the analysis of one nation, one election, and thank you.